There we go. Okay. Hello, everyone. Thank you for being here for Tech Tutor Get Organized. Today we have an excellent presentation by our resident tech genius, Larry Edison. You probably know him from, all the hard work he does, coaching people with technology every Monday, and the incredible tech presentations he's given us for how many years have you been doing this now, Larry?
Well, only what, did I remember a year and a half now?
Year and a half. Okay.
You're coming up to
Um, Today, Larry is doing a presentation on keeping yourself organized with technology, something that I could definitely use. So I'm glad I'm here today. So Larry, would you like to get started?
Let's do it. Let me share my screen. Okay, I cannot see most of you, but I'm going to assume you can see my screen. Please let us know if you cannot see these
I can see your
slides.
screen, Larry.
Okay, good. So indeed, that's what we're going to try to do this morning, how to help you get your life more organized using tech as a tool. If you have any questions in the meantime, you can feel free after the presentation to email me. I'm going to be, after this class, heading out to the car and driving up to Chicago, so I won't be able to answer your emails right away, but at least you can get them started. So feel free to copy that address down and send me your questions. Okay, there we go. So I want to talk about the idea of convenience and think about the way that we operate. I don't know about you, but all day long, I have the option of spending time trying to think, what do I need to do today? What did I tell that person I would do? What are my tasks? So I can think, try not to forget, remind me, I'll tell my wife, remind me to do this, remind me to do that. Or I can grab my phone or my iPad or my gadget and get it written down. So we all have different ways of coping with trying to remember our obligations. And that's what we're going to talk about today. How do we best deal with those things? So here's some sample questions. We have friends all over the world now, globally, and we know they moved. What's their address? Did I write down their newest address? Or, as I mentioned, my wife and I will be driving in the car, and Gina will look at me and say, Larry, remind me. Well, I'm driving, I've got my hands on the steering wheel. How am I going to remember to remind her? Or the appointment, is it today? Is it next week? You get the idea. Or more importantly, when's the last time I saw this particular doctor so I know when to make another appointment? All of those questions are really, really important, and we deal with them all the time. And our options, well, we have several. We can write them down in various notebooks. So some of you have an address book, you have a calendar, and you have little Post-it notes all over your house. Or we can get everything down on our phone or iPad and have it beep at us when we want, so that our memory is jogged. So let's talk about some baby steps. I'm calling them baby steps because they're just one at a time, fairly simple to remember. But some of you might be doing this already, so stick with me. For some, this will be a review. For others, this might be new, not realizing that your phone or your gadget could do something like this. We're going to talk about 4 apps. You see them on the screen: your notes, your calendar, your contacts, and reminders. These are the 4 apps I use the most, apart from email and messaging. These are the apps that hold, at least for me, what's really important to remember. And so they're my go-to apps. The examples I'm going to be using are mostly from an Apple, since that's my area of expertise. But everything I'm talking about in this presentation applies to Windows and Mac, as well as to Android and Apple. They look different, but the principles are exactly the same. I'm going to try to use some illustrations from both, but don't panic if your screen isn't the same as mine. because you might have another operating system. It still applies, just in a different way. Okay, so for these apps, we have notes. So you can think of sticky notes, notes that you plaster in various places, or ideas that you want to get down in print that you'll pick up later. Your calendar is like the calendar you have on your icebox. So it's just easier to carry all over. You have your address book and your reminders. Love reminders. Everything I need to do all in one place. So let's break them down. App number one is your contacts, and think of your address book when you think of contacts. How do we use it? How do I use address books? Well, let's notice the way it looks first. Here's a blank screen. This is a blank contacts page. So what's the information on it? Well, notice in this top area, who are they? First name, last name, or company. How do you get a hold of them? Well, this gives you several options. Their phone number or their email address. So every page of your contacts has this information. It also contains, whoops, what's so special? In other words, what do you need to remember? Is it a birthday or an anniversary? Get it down there so that you'll be reminded regularly what are the dates that are important to this particular person, and where do they live, or where are they staying. So you can see first name, last name, where are they, how do you get a hold of them? Really important and really basic information that can clutter up a paper address book. And trust me, I've seen some of your paper address books, and it has writing 360 degrees. Getting it down digitally would sure be nice. So here's an example. Here's my vocal cord doctor. So I have his name at the top. I have what kind of doctor he is, where he's associated, and his numbers. But also notice something as well. The address book or the contacts includes a notes section. So he told me that he was going to assign a vocal therapist for me. He told me her name, but it might be a couple of days before she called. So I wanted to get her name written down. So I didn't want to start a whole new address card for her, but associated with Dr. Bradley is that therapist, Megan, because I want everything about this doctor in one place. So easy to access. And at this point, when I wrote her name down the first time, if I were to have searched for her in my address book, I might forget what her name is, but I'm not going to forget Dr. Bradley. Or if I did forget his name, I could search simply by the letters ENT. So it makes finding him really easy. So this might be another person, and instead of voice therapist, it might be a spouse's name, or a holiday gift, or some kind of information about this particular contact that you're not likely to have recorded on paper using a pen or pencil. And then from this app, probably, but a number of you don't realize this, from the address book itself, you can send a text message, you can call. In this case, you see the call to work coincides with the phone number label. So I can call him. If I have the information, I could video chat or email. So directly from contacts, you don't need to go to phone. You don't need to go to your texting app. You can do it right from your contacts, starting all in one place. So now the question, how do I get their name into my digital address book? Well, two ways I'm going to show you. Number one, from a text, and this is automatic. It really is easy because I don't like typing things in manually if I don't have to. So here's an example of a text. So this company sent me a text, and I need to touch that text to access the information. So here's what it looks like when I touch. It turns blue. And notice when I touch it, it has their text but it also has a piece of information at the top. So I can touch that phone number, that little arrow right here, and a drop-down menu will appear that asks, do you want me to add this name to your contacts? Excuse me. My voice therapist says never clear your throat. So I touch the name at the top of the contacts, and boom, there it is. Add to contacts? And the answer is, you bet. What an easy way to do it. So as soon as I touch that, my contacts opens up and their number is added. And not only that, but if it can discern the number, it will add the company. If it can't figure out the name of the company, then you can add it from there yourself. And from here, all you need to do is say, create. So I've touched the phone number. I've said, put it in my address book. I've reviewed the information, and I touch create to get it right in. Or if you want to do it manually, you go to your address book, and at the top, there's a little plus sign. When you click the plus sign, it starts asking you for information. What's their name? Are they associated with a company? And you simply touch or click and type it in. Then you move down the page, add more and more information, whatever you have, their phone number, their email, until eventually you have everything in there that you need, and you touch done, and that quickly you've recorded all their information into your digital address book. And here's a screenshot from an Android, and it's the same thing. So you get their name, your phone number, your email. You can add it in the same way just by touching or clicking. In this case, instead of touching done, you touch save. But you see how it's the same principle. Okay, that was 400 miles an hour. Any question?
Yeah, we did. Sandy, I think you had a question.
Sandy, go ahead and unmute yourself. Okay.
I may have the name wrong, but you have your hand raised you have your hand raised. Feel free to ask the question.
I see somebody raising their hand. I just go ahead.
Larry,
Yes.
can you elaborate on the video chat on your phone?
Sure. As a matter of fact, with the video chat, almost any gadget, computer and all, if you have an Apple, for example, and you have somebody's mobile phone number, then you touch that video chat icon and an app called FaceTime will open up and begin. So you can actually FaceTime with somebody that way. And it's the same principle on other devices. The idea is if you have somebody's mobile number, then you can invite them, in essence, call them using FaceTime or whatever Android does. You can't do Zoom that way, but it's the built-in mobile app. Although like with an Apple nowadays, you can FaceTime with an Android person, but you'll be sending them a link rather than an actual video call. Okay, so it just initiates whatever video call feature is on your particular gadget. But it has to be to a mobile number, generally. Other questions? Okay. Hopefully I'm not going too fast. Okay, let's talk about reminders. And this is probably, it's not that I have a ton of information. I use it all the time, but it's the one I like the best because it frees me from having to remember something. So as I mentioned in the car, my wife will say, remind me to do something. And I lovingly and graciously say, no, tell Siri. That's what Siri's for, to remind you. So we're getting used to that. So what's the difference between a calendar and a reminder? Well, think of it this way. Your reminders are places to go. I mean, your calendar, places to go, people to see, appointments you're making. Your reminders are things you need to do now or in the future. So that's how I differentiate the two. Appointments versus things I simply need to remember. I love using Siri. So you can see on my iPhone, I simply called up Siri and said, remind me to call mom. And notice what Siri says down here. Here's Siri's little voice activated feature, but it's the same thing on Google Assistant. I asked Siri to remind me to call mom, and she says, okay, I've added that. And there it is in my reminders. You can do it with anything that you want. Siri, remind me to email Fred or pick up pizza at 6 o'clock tonight. Love reminders, gets it out of my mind onto a digital list. You can sort reminders by topic. So on an Apple phone or in the Apple world, these are called lists. So I can add reminders based on, is it family? Does it have something to do with my house? So for example, you saw a minute ago, we use fresh air, heating and cooling. When I realized something was wrong, I went to the house list, and under house, I said, remind me to call fresh air. So I use different kind of categories, or if I'm going to call a doctor, I'll put it under my medical list. In this case, people tell me what movies I need to watch. So during COVID, we started watching a lot of movies. So under this list called recommendations, here's 3 movies. Where would I write that down? If somebody says, Larry, you need to watch this movie, where am I going to put that I'm going to remember? Well, I put it under recommendations so that I don't have to figure out, where did I put that piece of paper list? Okay. I also have a list called now. So what do I need to do now? Well, I need to call my Medicare insurance because the new year's coming. And since I'm leaving for Chicago today, I put this reminder in my reminders 2 days ago. Remember to put a stop mail card in my mailbox because my wife told me I needed to do that. How am I going to remember to do that? Put it in my reminders. I hope that makes sense the way that I'm using it. So here's an example. So here's a reminder, call about Medicare Plus. In this case, I need to make sure that I'm notifying myself so I remember to look. So I have the option of, do I want to check? Do I want it to pop up and to remind me on a particular day? And the answer is yes. I wanted it to remind me, on November, where did I go? On September 18th. So I put that little check mark in, so it will pop up. I don't even have to remember to look. It's going to remind me that I have a reminder, if I can say it that way. And so it's going to make a noise. It's going to do whatever I've told it so that I won't forget to look. And by the way, also, sorry for the slides, I can tell it to remind me at a particular time of day. I remember also, I used to keep a grocery list in my reminders. So in Florida, we have what's called Publix supermarket. So I used to remind me at a location, and I'd put the Publix address. Sorry, folks. And when I drive into Publix, my phone would know where I was, and the grocery list would pop up in front of me, so I didn't even have to look for it. Crazy convenient. Okay, so that's a little bit about reminders. Any questions about a way you can use reminders?
Larry, someone put in the chat how to access Siri. Did you cover that? Okay.
I didn't. I'll be glad to tell you. There's 2 options. And I think this holds true for an Android as well. I was helping somebody with that this week. But in my case, I have to hold down the button on the side, the power button, and Siri will pop up. So when I hold that button down, first thing that Siri does is pop up. Or if you have a home button at the bottom of your screen, you hold that home button and Siri will pop up. So if you have that home button, it makes it easy. Just hold it down. You can also go to settings and go to Siri and search. And under Siri and search, you can turn on listen for Hey Siri. Now let me talk about that for a moment. I have a friend of mine who helps teach, and he's 92 years old. He walked out of his front door last year and promptly fell, face first, splat. His phone was in his back pocket. He couldn't get to it. He was able to just yell, "Hey Siri, call my wife." And Siri did it. So there is an advantage in settings to turning on Hey Siri, so you don't have to touch or hold anything. It's almost like being in a home that has an Alexa. You can simply say, "Alexa," and your device is listening. The same with Siri. Hey Siri, if you turn that on, it's always listening.
Oh, Larry,
Safety
I have
feature.
a question on, reminder and calendar. Isn't that calendar also has a reminder?
We're gonna look at that. In your
Okay.
calendar, you
Mhm.
can set an event, and
Mm-hmm.
under an event, you can say alert me. And you can choose how far in advance, 5 minutes, half hour, a day, and you can choose the sound
Mm-hmm.
that the calendar makes. So yes, like on an important event, I will tell it to alert me at a certain time and alert me using a certain sound. I want to hear that alert. I also tell it to vibrate. So in my case, because I have an Apple phone, an Apple Watch, my watch will vibrate as well as make the sound. By the way, if you have an Apple Watch, you can also hold the not the power button, but the round button to get Siri. Sorry, go ahead.
Between using a calendar and reminder, which one do you prefer to use? The
Well, I
reminder?
really use it divided that way. For any appointment, like I go to a cardiologist on a regular basis, and they look at me and they check my defibrillator, all kinds of stuff. So I can't forget those appointments. They're made 6 months in advance.
Mm-hmm.
If I put that on a piece of paper, I'd be in big trouble. And I don't want a big calendar on my icebox anymore. So I use my calendar, and that's really, really important to me. But I love my reminders, so I don't have to try to remember what am I supposed to be doing. Like just today, putting that little note for the mail person in my mailbox, I don't want to have to remember that. I want it to tell me, "Larry, put that note in my mailbox." So I really do use both. Reminders is easier for me because I use Siri. I simply say, "Siri, remind me."
Mm-hmm.
Larry, how do I use an app to find my phone when it's lost?
Okay, let's hold. Can you write that down and hold it for the end, because that's a whole different ballgame. But on your phone, assuming you're an Apple, you have an app called Find My, and that Find My will find all of your Apple registered devices. Or in my case, when we moved to St. Louis 5 years ago, I was fairly used to it, though we had been gone for 45 years, but my wife wasn't. And she was always a little bit concerned about getting lost. So I used to use Find My to see where she was, to see if she made it to her destination. And she likes that. It wasn't creepy. It was helpful. So the app is called Find My. Other questions? Okay.
Larry, I have a question.
Okay.
On the Android, is Alexa on the settings, and will that take up some of your power on that?
Okay.
I mean,
Sure.
yeah.
Let me answer that. I'm going to answer this in a roundabout way. I have Alexa on my iPad. I put the app on because we have 4 Alexas in our little condo here. And so if I need to get Alexa, but I don't want to yell out or something, I can do that even on my iPad. And so Alexa and Siri can coexist peacefully.
Oh,
On your
wow.
Android, you can have your Alexa app, but you'll probably mostly be using Google Assistant, just like I mostly use Siri. So it's Google Assistant that you'll be calling up on your Android. You'll have to enable that in your settings. But this last Monday, somebody came in to the Merowitz Center and I helped them activate Google Assistant, and they were just loving it. Wonderfully helpful. Other questions? So Siri for Android, Google Assistant, I'm sorry, Siri for Apple, Google Assistant for the Android. Okay, now let's get to the calendar. So don't only think appointments, think anniversaries and birthdays. And again, it's wonderfully helpful. You don't want to forget somebody's birthday. Just get it down in their calendar. And you can, when you make an appointment, you can say, yes, repeat, in the case of an anniversary or birthday, every year. So some appointments are one time only. Others you can repeat every week, every month, every year. Wonderfully helpful. Okay, as I mentioned a moment ago, you can have your calendar alert you to an appointment. And that's what's nice about having a phone or an iPad that's portable. You don't carry your computer around everywhere. Well, but with those gadgets, now we do. So I do set alerts regularly. Also, notice that your calendar, and again, this is one of the reasons that I love a digital calendar, though in the olden days, I used to keep my paper calendars year by year by year, but it serves as a diary. I can look through this and remember the last time I went to a particular doctor, or when did we visit with such and such a person. Very, very helpful. So this is one view of my phone. This is my day view, and this is the cleanest of a day view you can. See these little dots? That means on an iPhone, you have an appointment or some event on that day. So I can add an appointment manually, or I can do it by Siri and then look through day by day. This is what it looks like by month. Obviously, it's very small on here, but this mimics a month paper calendar. So you can see it's wonderful. I can look a whole month at a time and see in a glance. So you can see right here that we headed down to Arkansas. So I can have it spread across different days. Very, very helpful to see. And of course, I do not want to forget my wife's birthday. So very, very helpful. I won't tell you that one year, very, very, very early on, we had to celebrate our anniversary 2 days in advance. So we did it up, big deal. It was huge, it was big. We partied, I was really good. But what happened the day of the anniversary? Well, in my brain, that was it, 2 days early. And I woke up, didn't say anything to my wife. She had written on her calendar, maybe next year. Woo! Have I ever forgotten my birthday or our anniversary? No, not after that. So you bet I write it down. And so you can see these particular events. This is not, in this case, our condo had a subdivision party, so I wrote down the time. But in this case, because it's all day, it repeats day after day after day until I tell it to stop. So timed events or all day events, again, very helpful to see. And as I said, you can get alerted. So how do you do that? Well, you go under sounds and haptics, at least on an iPhone. On an Android, there's sounds. and you can choose what you want. So I can choose when it comes to text or voicemail or mail. And here you see it, calendars, reminders, what type of alerts. So I can choose from sounds or, in case of a calendar, just vibrate only. But in my case, that'll vibrate on my wrist. So you can choose what type of sound you want for any app that you want. It's wonderful. So you simply go to alert tones and choose. So on my telephone, I've even chosen a specific song. We all remember the song, and I'm the same era, The Lion Sleeps at Night. So that's my telephone ring. The lion sleeps at night, and whoo, it's jarring and it gets my attention. But you can choose a calm sound like just aura. Just go through your gadget and play with the song, play with the sounds. Okay, so how do I add a calendar event? Well, here's the language. Add dinner tonight at 6 p.m. to my calendar. So you have to name the event, dinner. You want to say when it is to get a time. Then you have to tell it what app you're talking about. So you can say, pick up pizza, remind me to pick up pizza. So the remind me refers to reminders. So schedule a calendar event. It knows to put it in your calendar. If you use Siri, you wait for that little Siri icon. You can see it on the bottom of this screenshot. To add a calendar event manually, that's my hint. To add, you use the plus sign. This menu will open up, and the new event is whatever you want to call that calendar event. So you put new event here, Zoom meeting. And then you choose, it's going to give you a default. The default will be a particular day and time. You can touch whatever of these you want to change to the time that you're looking for. So touch the time, touch the date, and you can choose. The start time, it's always a 1 hour default ending time, but you can choose to end it whenever you want. Here's an invitation that Susan mailed out. And notice on this invitation, it's underlined. That happens automatically. Anytime you can do something with an invitation automatically, it will underline as a link. So notice what I can do with this email invitation. The invitation pops up on my screen. I see the underlining. All I need to do is touch. So I touch the underlining, and this menu pops up. Gives me several options, but one of the options I can choose is automatically create an event. So I'll touch that. So in this pop-up menu, I've touched create an event, and the moment I touch create an event, it adds Tech Tutor, because that was the title, and it adds the start time, and I can't remember if I put in the end time or if it was automatic. All that automatically from an invitation that somebody sent me. Touch the invitation, the underlining part, create an event, and it did it automatically. All I need to do is touch add, and it goes right into my calendar. Here's what an Android calendar looks like on an iPhone. So you see there's some of these meetings right there. Same way, see the plus sign? You simply add a calendar event on your Android using that plus sign. Here it is in landscape view. This is the view I preferred. You can see more information. Sorry, I touched the wrong thing. And you can add what you want to your calendar. Okay. Any questions about your calendar? Yes.
We have
had
a
a
couple
question.
questions in the chat, Larry. Oh,
Oh.
was someone speaking?
I can't
Uh,
see the chat.
Go ahead,
Yeah,
Cindy.
the chat one, if there was something that was entered on a calendar a while ago for a reoccurring meeting and it's not happening anymore, how is that deleted?
The only way that I know to delete a calendar event generally is by touching it, and at the very bottom, you'll see a delete. Sometimes you have to edit and then delete. But
Okay.
generally, when you open a calendar event, at the bottom, you should see a delete option. Now, let me look at the calendar myself. Touch a particular event. Yes. For an iPhone, at the very bottom of the event that pops up after you touch it, it says delete event.
Thank you.
Okay.
Um,
And
we
in
have
order
another
to make
question.
sure it happens every week, if you already have a calendar event and it's turned into something that happens every week, you touch edit, and then you make it, you touch repeat. So it will repeat as often as you want.
Okay, and I'm gonna read off another one in the chat. If you put in an event on your calendar on your iMac, do you have to repeat the procedure of putting that event on your calendar, on your iPhone or iPad, or will it sync onto your other device and remind you from there?
Thank you. I can't believe I didn't think to put that in. As long as you are syncing, for example, if you in your settings go to iCloud and make sure things like contacts, calendars, reminders are syncing, that's all you need. It will, I have 3 computers, a phone, and an iPad. It syncs to everything. So when I'm at the doctor's and she starts to write me a reminder card, I say, I don't need one. I'm putting it into my phone right now. By the time I get home, that new event for my next visit is on all my gadgets. I can show you where that is at the end. But yes, as long as you're already syncing, it will be on all of your gadgets. That's what's so nice about using this. Like when we used in our early days a calendar on the fridge, it wouldn't sync to the calendar I used at work, obviously.
Okay, I got a tough one, Larry. So someone has an old Apple iPhone, but there is no calendar. How do they get the calendar to install?
Okay, I've never heard of that. So what it means is that it was deleted. I didn't know they could be deleted. But to go back and get it, you simply open up the App Store and look for previously purchased. So in the App Store, anything you've ever had on the phone will appear in previous purchased, or you just search for calendar and you'll see a little cloud with an arrow pointing down. That means you put it back onto your gadget. So App Store, search for it by name, calendar, or by previously purchased, and you'll see it. Don't download a new app. Look for the one that has the cloud with an arrow pointing down, which means put it back onto my computer, onto my gadget. Other questions? When we finish with the slideshow, I can show you some of these when we're finished. I can show you live. So Daniel, maybe make a note of that so I can remember to show people in the Find My app. Sorry, other questions? Okay,
I have a
Yes.
question.
sure.
Over time, you accumulate tons of emails. And now I'm up about to 12,000. Is there any way to get rid of them in bulk rather than one by one by one?
Right. If you have a Gmail and a computer, it's crazy easy to do that. I forget the steps, but yes, you can do them all at once. If you don't have a Gmail or you're doing it from an iPad or an iPhone, it's a little more difficult, but the answer is yes, there is a way to do it. And the way you do it is you get to your inbox. Let me go back and do it. And touch, touch edit, I think. You go, and then once you start deleting, something should pop up that asks you, do you want to delete them all at once? I forget what it's called. But that's why I try to clean mine out pretty regularly. But yes, I don't know the steps right in front of me. I don't do it enough to remember, but there's a way to delete everything at once. Scary, but yes.
Yeah, that's the trouble.
Right, right.
Thank you.
But there's not only a way to delete everything at once, but for example, on an iPad, you can touch edit, and then a little circle will appear on the left of each email. You can touch those circles or mark them all for trash. So you don't have to go one by one. You can just quick touch a whole list and delete them that way. I'll show
Thank
you
you.
at the end.
Okay.
Okay. All right. So how do I use my notes? I've learned by now that it's helpful for me to have some of my wife's recipes in notes. I even have my grandmother's, some of her recipes in my notes. It's really kind of fun. Books I want to read, I'll keep a list. Questions to ask my doctor. Folks, I can't tell you, I smile because it really is kind of funny. Those of you who come see me on Mondays, you'll know who you are on this. One of the first things you'll say is, I had a whole list, but I left it upstairs. And I'll try to lovingly say, if you use your notes, it'll be on there when you come down. So my wife and I both use a grocery list that's based in notes. So these are things you want to keep in front of you, but they're too long for a reminder. They're lengthy, or can be lengthy. Some people have asked me, how do I journal? What's the best way to journal? Or I want to start a writing project. Where do I start? Do I start in Microsoft Word or Apple's Pages? And I encourage them to start getting their thoughts down in notes. Because if they start getting their thoughts down in notes, that's syncing to all their other gadgets, and they can pick up where they were, wherever they are. Okay, so it's simply random information, but what's nice is you can search for it. So any word that you've written down, like if I have a grocery note and I can't find it, I can literally search for the word grocery and it will find itself. So here's an example of something that I use. Here's the notes part of my app. Here's all the topics. But when I go to the doctor wants to know what are my medications. And as a matter of fact, it even says on my reminders, bring all your medications with you. I think, really? I'm not going to do that. So I write down what they are. Now, in this case, what am I missing? Somebody tell me what I'm missing.
You Siri.
There you go. I could have done that. But what am I missing in terms of content?
The mouth, the medication.
Exactly. So I thought I was so genius, and I turned the note around to my doctor and said, got it all ready for you, doc. He said, well, how much are you taking? Whoops. So I have to write down the amount or the milligrams or whatever it is. But you can see how nice this would be. So I'm trying to keep a record. Or other places that I'm involved with, they want proof that I've been vaccinated or I can't get in. So in my notes, I keep a picture of my latest vaccination booster as proof. Or I know this looks disgusting. When I was growing up, every year my mom would make fruitcake. And there was virtually no cake. It was all candy. So us as kids would just love it. So you bet this is the recipe for that fruitcake that I didn't want to lose. To make a note or to write a note, you simply start with this icon, which I think is pretty funny, pencil and paper. So you touch or click that note. If you're using an Android, you simply click down here on Google Keep. Google Keep is the same thing. So as I mentioned a while ago, these Apple apps all have the same version on Google. So you can see, for example, one of the guys that came in on Monday morning, I wrote his name down, and what was the issue? He had a Chromebook, and I wrote down some of the things we did with his Chromebook to remind me of what I needed to check to make sure I was right. So I wrote these down for later research. So Android or your Apple Notes is a wonderful feature. And let me show you one way to use these notes. Let me clear my throat. Don't tell Megan I did that. Okay, so here I am reading this article from the Jewish Light, but it was late at night. It only held my interest so far, but I wanted to remember to pick it up. So on my web page, in my web browser, Safari, I clicked the share icon, the box with an arrow, and I touch Notes. So I'm sharing to my Notes app. When I share this this internet article, this from St. Louis Jewish Light, this is what it looks like. It contains a link in my notes so that anytime I can open my notes and touch this link, I can write a topic or a title for this particular note and save it. So here it is. Here's the name of the article, Why September 18th is Important. It contains one web link. So I can go to my notes, so you can see what I've got a bunch of topics, touch it, and it will take me to that article where I can finish it at my leisure. I don't need to bookmark it, because I didn't want to save it forever. I just wanted to save it for a while until I finished it. I've been talking about Android and Apple, but all of these things are available on your Windows. So for example, at the bottom of my Windows Mail app, there's my calendar, there's my address book, my contacts, and my reminders. This is the way it looks. Touch that, click that reminders, tells me to add a task. So it's called tasks in Windows, not reminders. I've edited it out, but here's my contacts in my Windows computer. And here's my calendar on my Windows computer. So whether Apple or Windows, they all contain the same basic helpful functions. If I want to add a Windows calendar event, it's the same thing. I touch the event name, I touch the time, I can even put a location and tell it to remind me when and save it. Folks, they're blowing the leaves out of the backyard. I hope you can't hear that. Okay. Let me stop and take questions. Excuse me.
Yeah,
Any
someone
questions
put
so
a
far?
question in the chat of how to delete a note.
It's really, really easy in Notes. Let me go back. Right here, you can do two things. You can touch a note and hit the delete app. I simply swipe this direction and delete will appear. So start on the right side, swipe to the left, and touch delete.
Excellent. And someone asked, can you sync an Apple laptop and an Android phone?
The only way that I know to do that is if I'm using Google Apps on my phone. So for example, I have Google Apps on my phone. I have Google Docs. I have Google Keep. I have Google Calendar on my phone. So if I am using the Google version of these items on my iPhone, they will sync to an Android. But you have to be using those Google apps, not the Apple apps. That's the only way
Thank you.
I
I believe we're
know
all
to
caught
do
up in
it.
the chat.
Okay. Let me do a couple live things. So let me stop sharing.
Larry, I have a question.
Okay.
Can you add a Google app to an iPhone?
Yes, and that's what I was just saying. On my phone and my iPad, I have Google Docs, Google Keep, Google Calendar. I have several of them on there. when I
Can
was
you do it
subbing,
the other way around? Put a iPhone app on Google?
I don't believe so. I don't know that, but I don't believe so. So when I was subbing for a local school here, when I first moved, they used Google everything. And that's the reason I put all those Google Docs, so that I could keep up with the school's calendar and anything they were putting on my calendar. I don't believe that Apple's apps are Googleized. No.
Okay.
Daniel, do you know otherwise?
I do not.
Okay. Yeah. Okay. Let me show you all. I'm going to stop sharing for a moment. And a couple of you asked questions. So let me get my iPad out. Show you how to do something. Okay, let me go to notes. Okay, can all of you see my iPad? Okay, on this
Yep, I can see it.
this email right here, I can see how I can just swipe and there's the trash can. So how do you delete a note? You swipe over and choose the trash can. What about Find My? In order to search on my iPhone, I'm going to touch in the middle right here and pull down an inch, not even an inch. See, this search appears. So I can type in Find, and there's my Find My app. Or, as I've been bragging about, from your homepage, notice what I'm going to do. Open Find My. And Siri will open Find My. So on this side, I can pull up, scroll through, and here's my wife's gadgets because she's registered them with me. And I can touch her iPhone, and there we are. So there's her iPhone and mine. So at any time I need to, I can see where she is using Find My, because in iCloud, that's turned on. So let me show you how to make sure your apps are syncing from gadget to gadget. First stop is Settings. In Settings, touch your name at the top left. Then scroll down to iCloud. And you see the list of apps here? You can see what is being synced or not. So if you want to sync your reminders right here, you need to make sure this green light is on. Now, I'm not syncing everything. I'm not syncing news. I don't care that that's synced. iTunes University, et cetera, et cetera. So only the items I want to be synced are turned on under Settings, your name, and iCloud. Did I cover those two options that I said I was going to demo for you? Daniel, do you remember any other questions about?
I think you've answered everything.
Okay.
We have a couple people asking, Larry, can you email me the slides that you used today, and then I can send them out to the people who requested it?
Okay, if it's small enough to do that. Yes, I
And
might
this
not
can
be
be
able to
after
do
the
it today.
program.
What's that?
That's okay.
I'll try to.
And if anyone would, if that's okay, and then I can send out to the people who requested, the
Sure. It's really
slides to
large. I'll
review.
figure a way to pare it down.
Okay. Someone asked, people stop by on Mondays to see you, and they asked what that's about. Larry Edison is our tech tutor hardware helper. So he takes appointments on Mondays. Larry, it's usually from oh, Susan's there. Susan, go ahead.
Hi, everybody. So if you would like to sign up for a one-on-one session with Larry, you can contact me. So I put in the chat my phone number with extension and my email, and you can schedule it in a half-hour time slot or an hour time slot. Larry is amazing. He is so patient. That's the word I hear the most. People always say about Larry, he's patient, patient, patient. So if you would like to contact me, I would be happy to set you up with the time.
Thank you, Susan.
One person who comes in made the mistake on a Zoom call of telling my wife how patient her husband is. So now I've got to be as patient at home.
That's cute.
Any other questions? I realized that was a lot of material really fast, and some of it was specific, but the idea was to give you a feel for the way these apps can enhance your life. And that's the way I look at it. Sure, sometimes gadgets can be bothersome, but it has freed me up so much to be able to get things down in print. And I am horribly ADD, officially diagnosed as a younger person, used to be on Ritalin. And so this has massively helped me keep my brain uncluttered, well, as much as it can, and organized.
Okay, Larry, we do have two people with their hands up.
Okay.
Marilyn, go ahead and unmute yourself.
Okay, Larry, I just wondered whether you could give your contact information again.
Sure. The easy one to remember is Get Tech Larry. So Get Tech, GETTECH Larry at iCloud.com. I think I have a million of them. Apple trainers at
iCloud?
Gmail, at iCloud.com. Get Tech
Okay,
Larry
it's in the chat.
at iCloud.com.
So if anyone, two T's, right? So between the T and the tech and the T and the get, that's two T's
Right,
back to back, right? Okay. So the email should be in the chat. Barbara, I think I saw you with your hand up for a second. Did you have a question? Okay. Okay, any last questions?
And just remember, everyone, today's program was recorded. We covered a lot of information, and you can get the recording from us on our website and review everything we've done today.
And Larry, thank you very much. As I said in the beginning, you're the Babe Ruth of Tech Tutor programs. That was another home run.
Awesome, thank you so much.
Thank you everyone for being here today. We will have Larry back. I can promise that if he, as long as he's available. So that was a fantastic program.
Yeah.
Thank you. We'll look forward to it.